Hello.
Hello.
So, yes, as I don't even know your name. Ellen just said, I'm Tanya, and I'm talking about the brain, epilepsy, and what epilepsy is talking about, accelerated learning. For those of you that haven't seen me talk before or haven't seen my work, I've been the teacher for more than 10 years now. I've been developing my own accelerated learning systems and developing my own ways of teaching different subjects. And a lot of that is based on and comes from the epilepsy. So how many of you here know someone or has ever experienced any form of epilepsy? Nearly all of us. Quite a lot then, in a very small group. Sorry, very large group then. Should I stop now? Okay. So most of us have experienced it, most of us have some idea of what epilepsy is in some form or another. It's one of the most common and oldest neurological conditions. If you look it up, it'll actually say disorder, but I'll always say condition because it's not a disorder of anything, it's a condition. In the brain, where it's to do with the messages that are sent along the neurons. Does anyone know how many neurons are in the brain?
Lots.
100 billion around 100 billion, which is a 1 with the 11 zeros. To give you an idea, and epilepsy is basically like an email being sent or a letter being sent without us originally wanting to send the message in the first place, or without us being aware of the message that was sent. So what would it be like to suddenly get a call from someone saying, "Oh, I got an email from you, but looks like you didn't write it." It's almost a fraud. That's kind of my experience for the last 14 years. Just a complete made up of experiences of someone saying, "Tanya, do you know what happened yesterday?" No idea. I mean, there was one time in London when a friend of mine said, "Tanya, we're on the phone and you suddenly started talking about Egypt and I realised that you were in the middle of starting to have a seizure." Got no idea why, but she could tell from the way that my voice was going that it was slowing down and that I was losing consciousness. So, but I didn't know about that. To me, it's just like having a nap. In that sense, because in epilepsy, there's over 40 different types of seizure. Quite often we think that the one that we see all the time, that's the only one that ever happens. Luckily for me, I've experienced quite a lot of different types of seizure. So, although we think that what used to be called grand mal or a seizure, tonic-clonic, we call it in the medical world. I just said we then, I'm not in the medical world. If anything, I'm in the educational world. Edit that a little bit. I'm a teacher, not a doctor. But I have to say,
For God's sake, Jim.
I do have a very good understanding of what epilepsy is like because I've experienced it in quite a lot of depth. So I've experienced the main ones, or the tonic-clonic, which is what we know as seizures, but also absences, which is a little bit like I've been told, although being on drugs or being completely spaced out, having no idea what's going on but still being conscious. So that's got similarities with the tonic-clonic, but it's very different. I could be sitting in a cafe, I could be sitting at home, and for anything up to 3 hours, I've got no idea who the people are around me or what's going on.
Somebody's pulled the flash.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me. So, okay. I'll carry on tonight. So, epilepsy and what it's taught me about learning and the brain and accelerated learning. Firstly, it's taught me a lot about perception. You probably all know this, but we don't all see or experience things in the same way. Did anyone here see a programme that was on television last week called Employable Me? No? Yeah?
It's about a guy with autism that was trying to get a job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I caught that.
I'd really recommend it. It'll still be online if you want to watch it, but it was about two guys. One had Tourette's, one was on the autistic spectrum, and they talked about how they'd been unemployed for a certain amount of years and they really wanted a job. So it was about finding the right employer and the right job that would suit them. The autistic guy, it turned out that he was absolutely incredible at playing the piano. And they found that with a lot of autistic people. I mean, I could say again, does anyone here know anyone with autism? We quite often might say, or some people might say, oh, they're stupid, or oh, they can't learn, or they can't learn in this way. But they're not at all, because the things that they can do, or people who have autism or on the spectrum, the things that they can do are absolutely incredible. What this guy could do was he improvised piano pieces, so you could put a piano in front of him and he could just. But has anyone here heard of Daniel Tammet? No? Daniel Tammet? He's on the autistic spectrum and he's got epilepsy. He's a savant, so he's if you've heard of the film Rain Man, he's a little bit like that. But the difference is he can communicate, and he's written a couple of books about his experiences. He calls his epilepsy was when he was a child, and he calls it a storm or a crash of lightning. But what he can do is, if you say to him, my birthday is on the 10th of July, he'll say, you were born on a Tuesday. If you give him the date as well. And he can just work that out, that mathematical pattern, in less than a second. So that's part of his abilities, but also part of his thinking. But in terms of our own perceptions, we all perceive things very, very, very differently. We think we all see them the same way. And for me, the biggest thing about epilepsy is quite a lot of people freak out when they see someone have a seizure. Quite a lot of people, oh no, can't deal with that. And for someone having a seizure, that's the most annoying thing. To come round, to have all these people that have got no idea who they are, even if they're your mum. Sorry mum, I don't know who you are. And they're freaking out. So that's a little bit challenging for someone on the other side of it. But it's about people being able to be calm around it, whether they're the one experiencing the seizure or the one observing the seizure from the outside, as it were. Also for me, one of the big things it's taught me about learning is mindset. So the power of the mind in relation to the power of the brain, and how we learn things and how we perceive things. That all links together. In terms of accelerated learning, well, the biggest thing for me is when people have this concept of, oh, I can only learn things in a certain amount of time. And then when I say, well, actually, you can do it in whatever time you like. When I first started a few years ago, I was running language courses of conversational in another language in 2 days. So people were learning Spanish Saturday to Sunday. And they said, is it really just a couple of words or is it really conversational? No, they can learn if they want to. It's all about what's in their mind and how they feel about it. And that's the same with anything, really. But that's a massive thing in terms of learning and in terms of how we're going about life, how we're looking at things. And for me, well, on paper, it would look like I have a bad memory. Because after losing consciousness quite a lot of times, I've lost track of how many times now, but I've lost consciousness quite a few times. According to the epilepsy charities and the research that they do, they say that as someone gets older with epilepsy, or the more seizures they have, the more likely they are to have a bad memory. But for me, my memory is actually quite good, and that's because I've looked it up how it works and trained it. So I do regular exercises, I do a lot of things to keep my memory alive, so I know how the memory works in a lot more detail. And for me as a teacher, the biggest thing that I find, well, in some ways challenging, is they don't teach memory at schools. They don't teach, we don't, as adults, we don't teach our next generation. I'm getting warm now. Sorry. That's good. We don't teach our next generation, we don't teach our children how the brain works, or how to remember things, or how to be sure that in 50 years' time they're going to know what that was. So we expect children or people to remember names, faces, times tables, anything. We expect ourselves to remember something, but yet we've got no idea how. How is our brain doing it?
Rote, isn't it?
Pardon?
Rote memorisation. It's like you hear it enough times over and over.
That's one way.
But it's not very effective, is it?
No, it's not the most effective. In terms of memory, the biggest thing is association. So if you think of something you learn at school, for me, whether it's primary school or secondary school, something you learn when you were younger, generally, when you can remember something, it's in your long-term memory. The reason why is because it's connected to something else. So when you connect something to something else, such as, if I look at the way to remember the planets, hello? The way to remember the planets, my very easy way just shows us 9 is Pluto planets or not, I don't know.
My very easy method of naming.
Method, that's right. So that's, in memory, that's what we call an acronym. The most common thing people say is, oh, I'm rubbish at remembering names. Have you heard anyone say that? Yeah, quite a lot. Quite often I've said that, but not for quite a while. Because the more we say I'm rubbish at remembering names, the more difficult it is to remember that name. But there's a point in terms of memory when you've got that name in your head. And in terms of recall is about making something go into your long-term memory. So that's why I say repeat, review, and recall. Ideally, we need to repeat, review, and recall. So the repeating, saying it over and over, which is rote in that form. Reviewing, bringing it back, and recalling it. And the thing with recalling it is recalling it in different forms. So for me with memory, sometimes I can remember strange things. And the thing with, in terms of seizures, I've got no idea what's happened for anything up to a couple of weeks or forever of what happened in a certain space of time. And some, like I said earlier, some people said that's a bit like being completely drunk or completely, I don't know what that's like because I've never drunk, but in that sense, being so out of it, we don't know what's going on. But actually we do, and it is in there somewhere. And that's the other interesting thing about memory, is we store things, and there comes a point where we're storing so much information in our brain. I mean, our brain is an incredible supercomputer, far more powerful than any supercomputer actually. They can't build anything that matches the power of the brain. But when we think about all these things that we've gone through in our lives, if I think about my nan, who's nearly 90, and she can remember things from when she was 21, but she might not remember this morning. But yet another day, she'll remember this morning very accurately. But yet, where's that memory? It is in there. And that's the same as a seizure for me. The memory is in there. It's just in a different place, and I can't always access it. So, I'm going to have a bit of water now. Give us a bit of thinking time. The other thing about how it links for me to the brain and stress and relaxing is how, my brain's gone fuzzy now, water. Stress and relaxation and the impact that they have on our brain and how we focus. Funny that just happened when I was just drinking some water. The more stressed we are, the harder it is to focus. For me, if I want to bring on a seizure, a few years ago, this became quite prominent to me. I realised that there were ways that I could control whether I was bringing on a seizure or whether I was stopping one. That could be from the physical circumstances, because so if I wanted to bring on a seizure, I could create a physical circumstance that brings one on. So stress, tiredness, not eating enough, the environment that's not a very healthy environment at all. And you could think that's the same for all of us, for our own health. Stress doesn't help us. Tiredness doesn't help us. And in the same way, if I wanted to slow one down or stop one from coming on, then for me, what I found I needed to do was to relax, to slow down, to breathe, and to relax. And that's also in terms of the power of the mind, what the mind can do. Because if I told myself, oh no, I want to say have a fit, but really we're not going to say that anymore. Oh no, I'm going to have a seizure. If I said that over and over and over again, and I got myself into a very anxious headspace, then it's quite likely that I would. A few years ago I was doing some tutoring, and this 9-year-old girl, whether this was in a tutoring session or whether this might have been at school, I don't remember. Funny that. Probably too. 9-year-old girl, she said, I can't do it. And she got really, really, really frustrated. And we were doing a piece of writing, like story writing, descriptive writing. And the more she said, I can't do it, the more frustrated she got. I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. You could take that back, that's similar to learning a language, learning how to juggle, learning how to stand on one leg when you're younger. I can't do it, but learning how to ride a bike. So I said to her, can you see? Yes? What can you see? And she described the room around us and what was out the window. I said, can you talk? Yes, I can talk. Can you hear? Yes. And this went on. Well, I asked her quite a few questions of what can you do and what can you experience from that. And then I said, well, can you write? She said, yes, this is writing, I can write. And I said, so what's really bothering you? And she said, well, I can't understand how to put this writing into an order that I'm happy with. So quite often when we say I can't do this, it's really not, what's this? What do we mean by this? But when she realised that she can do it, she can write, suddenly she perceived it in a very different way. Her mindset was different and she was a lot more relaxed. And that's the same for all of us. Whether we're learning something or whether we're doing something, whether it's work or at home, it doesn't matter. It's all about being relaxed, being in a relaxed space, breathing. I say breathing because breathing is one of those things that we do that we don't realise that we're doing it. When we're stressed, we tense up and we don't breathe as effectively. We don't stop breathing, but in some ways we slow it down. And actually, when we're relaxed, when we're breathing in more, we're sending more oxygen to the brain, and that's helping the brain process a lot quicker. So, similarly, in memory, one of the world memory champions, Dominic O'Brien, he said one of the best things to do to optimise the brain's ability to memorise is to get into the theta state. Do we know the theta state of the brain waves? Yeah? No?
Meditation kind of space.
Yep.
Yeah.
So to be relaxed, to slow down the breathing, breathe in deeply, and that's more likely to get us into the theta state. Now, I can't say that all memory champions meditate, but I do know that 90% of all memory champions and all memory experts, they've shared in their, well, I don't know that for a fact either, but generally, memory champions and people that really understand memory, they know that it's important to relax. And they'll take time out before something for themselves to make sure they're breathing and they're slow down their brain waves. Hypnotherapist or hypnotism, seen the amount that they can do to get someone into a relaxed state. And it's quite magical really to see what they do. And suddenly someone can recall something because of the state that they're in. Or suddenly someone feels better in a certain way, whether it's mentally or emotionally or physically, because they're in such a relaxed, slow down state. Have I got any more questions on that? Sure. No? So, I've got the water there. I said water when I was coming back to stress and relaxation. One of the other key things for me that epilepsy has taught me about the brain is water. If the brain is 5% dehydrated, it'll stop working by 30%. So that's the brain. The brain needs a lot of water. We don't realise sometimes how much it takes in, the oxygen and the water. But also, not just water, but also what we're eating. What we're eating has a big effect. And in the same way that I said earlier about the environment that I'm in can slow down or bring on a seizure, it's a similar thing, it's the same with what I'm eating. If I haven't eaten all day, I'm more likely to be a little bit twitchy. I'm more likely to be shaken. If I'm eating regularly and if I'm eating healthily, I find I need to eat lots of greens, but that helps me. So it's all about what we eat to keep us healthy, but also to keep us focused, to learn something quickly, and to be able to process something quickly. Oh, and the last thing for me that I would say, in this sense of what epilepsy has taught me about learning, is balance. What do I mean by balance? Everyone always talks about the brain has got two sides, and quite often when we look back to our schooling, we would just sit in a chair the whole time, and that's it. We're just listening, we're just using one sense. And are we just using one side of the brain? In America, where, funny enough, epilepsy is a lot more talked about than it is in England, there's 50 million cases of epilepsy worldwide, 600,000 in England. But in America it's huge in terms of talking about it a lot more publicly. But the other thing that they talk about a lot is very big in America is what's called brain-based learning. So it's all about learning in accordance with the brain's rhythms, in accordance with how the brain is processing things. There's so many seminars and workshops and teacher training courses and things that they want schools to integrate into their teaching and into their own way of doing things using the brain. But also with balance, it's about being in harmony with something. How many of us here know someone who's dyslexic or autistic or dyspraxia? None of those were anywhere near as common even 20 years ago,
Oh, my friends now, I think, got dyslexia.
Dyslexia?
But apparently so, yeah.
Are they any different?
Well, I didn't actually know until they all told me. Apparently they've all got it now, so their spelling is off and things, and they do struggle with reading, I've noticed.
We could go into a whole debate about that, couldn't we?
It's like autism when I was at school. Nobody had it, didn't exist, and it seems to be on the increase.
Yeah, that's particularly autism supposed to be.
So,
Yeah.
Vaccination.
Excuse me.
What do you think started your epilepsy? Was it you were 17?
Yeah, I was 17 when I was diagnosed.
When did they actually start then?
No, I had a seizure when I was 12. October. This is the memory thing, because there's a link and there's emotion there. It's quite a lot of fear. It was a Tuesday evening. I was out for a walk with my parents. My brothers were at Sea Cadets. You see? But if you ask me what was I doing the month before, I don't know, other than being at school. So I was 12, that's when I had one. And what happened then, the doctor said it's just a random child seizure, because they're quite common, that children have them quite randomly, and they'll say, no, it's just random, it's not going to develop into anything. And then when I was 17, I started having these twitches. So I didn't have any full-on seizures, or tonic-clonics, or absences. I just, absences, you could say, absences are a bit like daydreaming. So we've all got epilepsy then. You could say that I had epilepsy all my life because I'm a daydreamer, but I started to have these, at 17, these shakes where I'd just suddenly be holding a glass of water and I'd drop it. Can you imagine the expense of my parents? But I'd be twitching a lot. It came on in the evenings, and about 6 or 7 o'clock after school or after college, and I'd suddenly have all these shakes and we couldn't stop it. And then we found that a way to slow it down was to eat something. That actually made me feel better. But in terms of my diagnosis, the doctors took 6 months and about 6 different types of medication or more to suddenly decide together that, yeah, she's got epilepsy. So, and then I've gone through such a wave in terms of since then of experiencing. I've gone through months without having any, and now I've gone through months with having many. And can you imagine what that's like being a teacher? I just laughed then, or I just stopped to laugh, because if I have a twitch now, I'm most often drinking lemon water. So I say I was twitching to clean the floor. It wasn't about the twitch, it was about the clean. If you turn it around and you see the benefit of it, then it's not anything to get stressed about, is it? So to go back, what caused my epilepsy? They don't know. I had forceps from my birth. It could be that, but they don't know.
It's funny because I've got three friends lately all been diagnosed with it as well. And one's a mother, recently had 3 children, one after, and child first had a seizure, they decided, then the mum had one, I think a week later or something, and now another friend of mine, so they're all social workers, both social workers rather, and now she's diagnosed with epilepsy as well. I'm not sure what types. But yeah.
And was the mother's, when you just said I don't know, but that sounds like it was also part of the emotion of it, of seeing a child have just.
I don't know, it's strange. They went through, obviously they couldn't drive and all the usual.
Yep.
Now they're both driving, one's driving, on medications and things. I haven't followed up yet. But yeah, it's strange that the child had it and then the mum a week later or something,
There's a lot of different stories and a lot of different connections with it. for me, it was quite strange that I've gone through so many periods without anything. When I was at university, I had a provisional driving licence, and I thought, maybe I'm going to be able to drive. I have driven a car, but only in the learning sense, and I've never actually been a year without, so I'm not allowed to. So you say you get your licence taken away, or you don't have a licence. That's what it's. So, and for me, the other thing about epilepsy is the dogma around it. But that's the same with dyslexia, autism, dyspraxia. Oh no, I'm really bad at this, or oh no, this is going to happen. It's the fear. And it sounds like a little bit of a strange story, but one of the seizures I had last year was while I was teaching. And I was working at a school, and there were several of the boys at that school that had epilepsy, and they were on high medication for it. And as an ambulance came, and there was one boy that saw the seizure, and as I was going away in the ambulance, I was sat in the front of the ambulance, so I'd come around quite quickly and I was fine. But I saw his best friend put his arm around him, the friend that saw the seizure, and he was comforting him, and they both waved at me, and the looks on their faces were just so heartwarming, because suddenly the boy with epilepsy, he felt a little bit more comfortable with it. He felt like it wasn't such a dogma to him, because one of his teachers had just passed out on the floor. So there we go. We don't have to see things as a dogma or as a bad thing. It's not, is it? It's about how we can make it into a good thing. I keep looking at this because this is my inspiration. This is for anyone. There's quite a lot of talks, or I've given quite a lot of talks about this specifically. This is the accelerated learning model that I developed a few years ago, and this is what I use to teach various subjects. So there's 5 aspects to that: relaxation, collaboration, wholeness, memory, and teaching. And that's come from my own teaching experiences, my own learning experiences, and the epilepsy. And it was quite a big thing for me to stand up as a teacher and to say, yes, I've got epilepsy, yes, I've passed out in front of children, and yes, I can actually teach something very quickly. But it's not about me, it's about us. We can all learn something very quickly. We can all do things much more efficiently. Because if we think what is accelerated learning in the first place, to me it's learning something effectively and efficiently. Because we have an idea from school, well, it takes 5 years to do a GCSE, or it takes X amount of years to learn a particular subject or topic or whatever it is. But if we do something more effectively, if we understand how the brain is working, then, and we really understand how the memory works as well, then it's much more efficient, much more effective, and it goes into the long-term memory more likely than the short-term memory. So, the relaxation is about breathing, slowing down the brain, but also about the body, the relaxation, getting into a good space, good head space, good body space, but being happy and comfortable with the learning. And if we think learning could be a little bit like seeing a plant grow, it's got to have the right environment. There's no point sitting in a nightclub trying to read a book, trying to understand a piece of Greek history with so much sound going on that's got nothing to do with it. So it's about the right environment, creating the right environment for our own headspace. The collaboration, learning is more effective, and doing things in general is much more effective when we're talking about it, when we're sharing it with other people. So if we just learn something on our own, that can be very effective. But to make it more effective, share it, phone up someone and tell them all about it, or do it with someone else. So
What if they don't want to listen?
find a different person.
Yeah. I think I'll do that.
For me also, I did drama at university before I went into teaching. And two of my favourite subjects, other than memory, of course, are drama and maths. So when I was doing my teaching, it was how to teach drama and how to teach maths. And in memory, when you do something to put it into your body memory, it's more likely to stay in your long-term memory. So when I was creating the Spanish course, I created role plays, Spanish role plays, and it's the same with French or anything. If you turn it into a role play and you put movement to it, like you're learning a dance, well, part of me is tempted to just start dancing, but I'm not ready to. Should put some music on and all start dancing, but it's about remembering the movement. Or really that actually happens automatically. Whether we're a dancer or a pianist or anything, our brain will still remember automatically. So it's not just about phoning someone up and telling them about it, it's getting them, could also get them involved. So wholeness, what we eat, what we drink, and linking the brain together. In the same way that there's a lot about brain-based learning, there's also a lot in America, something called brain gym, which are different exercises that we can do that connect our brain together. Funny enough, this is one of them. For me, there's an exercise in brain gym where you do this. Just link the opposite arm to the opposite knee. And what that does is that connects the right and left hemisphere together, and it makes you a lot more balanced. And it's the same that learning to juggle can put you in a better headspace if you don't get stressed by it. So, brain gym, that's also something to look up if you're interested in it. Of the different exercises, another one that you can do that will put your brain in a calmer space, and it will connect everything together much more. So I've learned over the years what different exercises that I can do for myself to slow down or calm the epilepsy, or to completely stop or postpone a seizure. And for me, a very big one is actually this. I've crossed my legs and I've crossed my arms.
You cross them in the same way. Yeah.
It doesn't matter actually.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's about the crossing. Because if you're in a really stressed or really tired space and you cross, but it's about my hands holding because they're sharing it,
Yeah.
then what happens is there's a connection there between the right and left hemisphere again. Your brain starts to slow down and you get into a calmer space. So for me, the two of these two, it's one of those ones.
Do you, when you say you do those exercises, do you have a feeling? I mean, I used to get a lot of migraines, and I had a feeling I was going to get a migraine,
Yeah.
and it was quite. You just get this. I can't explain it. I just wonder if you have a feeling like that it's about to happen to you at all, and that's what
Yeah.
makes you head it off.
Yes and no. Well, in epilepsy, they call that an aura.
Okay.
Because some people with epilepsy see a certain colour, and when they see that colour, or they could hear a particular sound. Every time they hear a particular sound. Or it could be, that's why I say multi-sensory is very big in terms of epilepsy.
Because I used to get the aura thing with migraines.
It's the aura,
With the
or it's a
colours.
certain taste in the mouth. For me, quite often, the twitching, the small hand twitching, that could lead to a seizure, and that's just a sign for me going, okay, time to sit down, or time to stop what I'm doing and just relax for a minute. But sometimes I do get a feeling in the head where something doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
Can't really explain it, it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on, but I know I need to drink some water, or I know I need to just stop and relax.
Use a tennis ball as well.
Yeah.
That works well with the foot.
What's that, sorry?
Tennis ball.
Oh, rolling it on the foot, banding foot, do you mean?
Yeah, I found out about that a few years ago from an eye specialist, and he suggested different eye exercises to do to improve your eyesight. One of them is to, and this actually helps me as well in quite a big way, putting your eyes around in a circle and looking up as high as you possibly can, and then to the right, to the bottom, to the left. And the other exercise that was recommended was putting a tennis ball under your foot and rolling it across your foot. And for me that really helps. It could be acupressure, it could be just a calming.
So your feet become really sensitive, don't they?
Yeah.
Pressure points on the bottom of the foot.
So, I don't know if you've experienced this, but with epilepsy there's a huge range in terms of what people experience. Some epileptics are very, 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 very sensitive, and some epileptics are sensitive in a completely different way. So for me, my hands and feet get very alert. I can also suddenly smell things, but in a very strong way. And I'll be very sensitive to light and sound. So I suddenly become very alert. But not all epileptics experience that. Do you agree? Yeah.
I do agree.
In terms of whether that's before a seizure or in general, I've met epileptics that would experience 20 seizures a day, and some that experience none for weeks. But it's also about how comfortable they are with it and what they do with themselves as it comes on. So it's about being comfortable with it and just letting it be, whether it's going to come on or not. The biggest thing is, for a lot of people, again, and I had to ask you if you experience the same thing, but for a lot of people that I've met with epilepsy or with something else that's similar, the biggest thing is, oh no, I feel like I'm going to have a fit, or oh no, something's going to happen, oh no, and then they build themselves up so much that they go into a seizure, or they go into a very stressed mode.
The adrenaline kicks in, doesn't it?
The adrenaline kicks in such a big way that when they come round, everyone around them is also very stressed, and then it takes them a long time to come round. But
It's so
that
different
varies.
from person to person.
Yeah.
I mean, we've worked with somebody that's very sensitive to the cycles of the moon,
Yeah.
and actually that can bring on more epilepsy. And then somebody else is photosensitive to light. So it just is so unique and different in each individual.
Yeah,
You find supermarkets really stressful, don't you?
yeah. Because of the lights,
All the lights.
which can bring on people's headaches. But interestingly enough, I wasn't ever diagnosed as being affected by strobe lights. Some people, for them that really brings it on, the strobe lights, but it's just the lights in general, how they are in the supermarkets.
It all adds to the uncomfortableness, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
Which raises the energy.
It's the pressure.
Yeah.
But also, as you say, it could be, it's lots of different things that could be bringing it on. But for me, it's stress, tiredness, food. The mindset is a massive aspect to it. The perception, which is linked.
And that's an unfortunate medication makes you feel tired.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of vicious circle, isn't it?
It depends what medication you're on, because I've mild epileptic.
Yeah.
And the first time I went on drugs for it, I just felt like it was a big, heavy, wet blanket over my brain. I felt dead.
Which one was that?
That was Epilepsy. Hated it. Then I kept on for a while. Didn't have any friends. Gradually came back. Now I'm on Keppra and I'm absolutely fine with it. No side effects.
What's your dosage, just out of interest?
It's quite low. It's only 100.
So much.
It's only 100.
Yeah, it's quite low, yeah.
But I don't have any side
It's
effects.
funny though, yeah, it seems to be, with that particular one, the lower the dose, there seems to be a threshold where you go over the threshold.
Again, it
It's
varies so much from person to person. I don't know if you've worked with people that, some people I've met are on a very high dose,
In my experience, most of the people that I work with a lot of people with learning disabilities, autism, and lots of the people with autism actually have epilepsy as an accompanying condition.
Yes.
They're on Tegretol, lamotrigine, Epilem, one that this lady over here mentioned, and they generally tend to be quite high dosages.
Yes.
And it's very difficult for these people because they don't have the verbal skills and the mental capacity to say no, I don't want that medication. So their conditions are just managed.
Yeah.
It's really hard. They can't tell me what it is that's causing their seizures even.
Yeah.
I just know from their behaviours, okay, Mark sat down now and he's looking uncomfortable. Okay, there's a seizure coming on.
Yeah. And
But he obviously knows that there's a seizure coming on because he knows when
but he's unable
to
to
make
communicate
himself.
it.
He can't communicate it, but you
Yeah.
can just see it in his behaviours.
Yeah, that was the same with some of the students I worked with last year, especially if they're taking prescription drugs for both autism and other conditions, or epilepsy and other conditions as part of one big thing. And sometimes people I've met where you can feel or know that a seizure is coming, but it's coming in the next second and you don't even have the time to communicate it. It just comes. So I'm going to summarise it all in terms of, for us, because we quite often think that epilepsy is, I don't know, I would say people that I've met, well, it's another condition, it's just another one, autism or dyslexia. We don't realise how many people have it. It's very, very common, and more than 1 in 100 people would have it. And also some people get it as a result of side effects in terms of medication that they're taking. Some people have it as part of that. Some people are born with it and some people develop it in later age. But for me, this talk isn't just about epilepsy, it's about how we can all benefit from something that we've experienced in our own lives and how we can turn it around. But also how we can, the more we understand the brain, the more we understand how our brain is working and how we're remembering things, the more likely we are, well enough, to remember things, to put things in our long-term memory, to experience them in a much more detailed and actually joyful way. Because once you turn something around and you've seen it as use the word gift, or you've seen it as an experience rather than as, I don't know, something annoying that happens, then you actually feel the benefit of it. And it's taught me so much as a teacher, as a learner, as a student of life, because we're all learning all the time anyway. So, has anyone got any more questions? Should we? We're all silent, we're all thinking, we're all digesting it, letting it sink in, are we? No?
I'm just trying to remember, there was a guy that I remember seeing that did some kind of a memory map, I think it was, where he would I just noticed your inspiration here, you've used very bright colours and stuff, and I can't remember what he called it, but it was a technique that I was...
Mind map.
Mind map.
Yeah, that was it.
Bazan.
Tony Bazan,
Yes.
that's it.
Tony
That's
Bazan.
it.
Yeah,
But it's and I really wanted to do it, but it was just, it seemed like too much effort, and maybe that's just me being lazy, I don't know, but...
Colours are very, very important to me.
Yeah.
I've always got a pencil case.
With memory, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or even
'cause-
tinted glasses as
Yeah.
well with colours.
Yeah. I've got.
Quite a lot of autistic or savants see numbers as colours, don't they?
Yeah.
And shapes.
So mind mapping is actually, Tony Bazan says this, but it's quite a lot of the other memory champions say this as well. Mind mapping integrates a lot of the memory techniques into one. So one of the memory techniques that's very common is chunking, breaking stuff down. If you chunk it, for me it's chunking into 3s are the most effective, but 5s are also very good, 6s can be quite good. But if you break something down, whether it's a telephone number, and you remember it in 2 sections, or whether it's a list of things, break it down into groups or categories, you spread it out, you turn it into a visual image. This is my mapping, isn't it? It's using the visuals, using the breaking down, the chunking, but also using the colours. Yeah. So colours for me are very, very significant.
I mean, there's great techniques like for learning a lot of, useful information, but like I've got a 10-year-old son and I read a little bit about memory, and there was one technique around kind of, what was it called again? You see, this is my memory now. I keep telling myself I've got a bad memory, I believe it is. It's a dangerous one, isn't it? But I got my son to remember all of the Shakespeare plays, or the titles of every single play, and he did it by having rooms in our house and having like a big image and a story that would relate back to the words of the titles of each of the plays.
It's called the Roman room method.
That's it, yeah. And he did it, and he went to school and he did it for the teachers at school, and they were like, how did you do that? That was amazing. And it was like you were saying earlier, is they don't teach us at school how to use our brains. They don't teach us how to use our minds in that way. And yet,
or we don't know how to understand our brains.
No.
So,
and I'm
What was that method called again?
it's called the Roman room method. I'll give you an example from 6 years ago. I was teaching in a school in London, and I was teaching history. So I hadn't been teaching history for that long. I can't say I'm a history expert, and all I can say is I'm an expert in my own epilepsy. But I've taught quite a lot of different subjects. So I just recently started teaching history to a group of girls, and I was teaching in secondary school. And I decided to use the Roman room method. So if you think of a room, because they were about 13, I said, actually, can you draw a room on a piece of paper? Now, what we're going to do is if you're looking at a room, so whether it's this room or your lounge or your hallway or any room you like, or you're making up a new room, it's about seeing that room in all of its glory very, very clearly. So you see it in a lot of detail. So that's why I asked them to draw it, because it would help them even more. So you can see, and then I asked, right, now can you put some furniture in the room, either in your mind or on the paper or both. So if it's your own lounge, can you put in your chairs, sofa, or whatever it is, can you put it all in? Did you use a similar way?
It's slightly different, but it sounds interesting. So.
But it's
yeah.
So I asked them to draw it all out, the room first in detail, and then I said, right, now imagine you're standing at the entrance to the room, or at one of the walls. Now on the left hand wall that you can see, in a big circle, someone has graffitied or painted on that wall the date 1914. And they all said, what? And I said, okay, we're just going to imagine this now. They had no idea what we were learning at this point. They were just painting some numbers on the wall, 1914. I said, now, on the right hand wall, can you paint the date 1918? And then we looked in detail what we were actually learning from the history textbook about First World War. And for them, it started on the left and it finished on the right. So they were drawing a journey in between, which interestingly enough is a different method, the journey method. But it's about the visualization, seeing the room in very clear detail and seeing the things in it. So if you want to remember a list of things, it's you then put them in the room. So if it's a shopping list of 10 things, I'm going to put my broccoli on the sofa, I'm going to put my water, I don't know, whatever I'm buying from the supermarket, I'm going to put it in each different part of the room, and you can see it very clearly. So it's about the location. One of the things a lot of the memory champions say is we have visualization, association and location. The Roman room method and the journey method are the two main ones that use these three techniques. So visualization, seeing something really clearly, in our minds, association, linking it with something else, whether it's the wall or the sofa, or linking it, that's the main thing, and location, so seeing the location of it. So similarly, the journey method works in the same way, where you imagine yourself going on a journey that you've done. It's much more effective if you think of a journey that you've done before many, many times. So rather than making up a new one, the journey from when you were younger, the walk from your house to the shop, and along the way put the different things. That's how to remember it. And some of these techniques, when you first hear them, they can sound a little bit strange, or they can. But the more you practice them, the more you visualise, the more you do it. And how many Shakespeare plays was he?
30 odd, 31, yeah.
So,
And he did them, he's only 10. So like, he woke up in bed in the morning and there were two guys dressed in pinstripe suits with bowler hats on with the letter V on both of them, and those were the two gentlemen of Verona, which was the first of the Shakespeare plays, and he went on a journey, up the street, and it was all in his mind, this journey.
yeah.
Which must have been the second technique you
The
talked
journey
about.
method.
Yeah.
So it's a technique similar to that, where the more bizarre it is,
Yeah.
the more bizarre thing you can think of,
Yeah.
the more you're likely to remember.
And actually, some of the visualizations he was coming up with were really making him laugh,
Yeah.
which made it a really enjoyable process for him to do it.
Yeah.
And that made him want to do more, but we've kind of it's fallen by the wayside a bit, but I think we need to pick up on it again.
It's also the thing with any subject, it's about the passion of it.
Mm.
And that's where humour is very important to memory as well.
Yeah.
And the more you enjoy it, the more you find the passion. It's interesting that young children can be so curious about something one minute and then,
That's like peer learning, isn't it? In the Swedish school, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So where we're sharing our passion, but peer-to-peer learning is sharing our passion but also teaching it to our peers. Did you mean Swedish teaching or?
Yeah, they use it over there, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer teaching. In Sweden, they use a lot of peer-to-peer learning in the Russian school from the Anastasia books that we were talking about earlier. So there's a school in Russia that I've been to, they use a lot of peer-to-peer teaching where they get children to learn something which is of this relaxation, collaboration, wholeness, memory, teaching. So get the students to all learn it and they'll say yes, but you're going to be teaching it tomorrow. So they'll know that they've got to, and for me, learning is only learning if you know that you really can explain it to someone else. I've only got it in my head if I know that I can explain it. When I went to that school the second time, there was a girl who was about 13 who was teaching algebra. And it's quite spectacular to see what we can do as human beings, what we can do, and how much we can remember, and how we can teach. It doesn't matter what the subject is. It's about finding the passion, finding the curiosity again. And we can use all these techniques and then we can share them.
So is it that you only know that you've really absorbed a subject when you're able to explain that subject using your own language, not just regurgitating what somebody else is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could just, sorry, I can't, we could just, that's to go back to learning by rote. Learning by rote and some of the older teaching systems is we can just learn a list and then just repeat the list. So I'm just going to learn from a memory book, I'm just going to learn the top 100 words in 5 languages and I'm just going to repeat them. But it's about putting them together in sentences. It's about personalising them, rephrasing them and being able to put it in my way or your way or his way or any person's way. It's what makes it unique and that's what makes it memorable. When you've got a language, say for example, you know that if you, so there's a certain amount of phrases that I know completely off by heart, but there's also when you know that you can just talk automatically in that language without thinking about it. And that's the same with any subject, is I can just talk about history or a type of maths or prime numbers, science. It's when you know that you can just share it without looking it up. But also that it's unique and it's personal and it means something. That's the other thing, that it means something to you.
Can I ask, when you talk about this room method and you visualise things, I know that some people, and I would, whether that works for everybody, because I know some people are not good at visualising.
Yeah.
Some people, it's sound, or it might be smells, or it might be touch or feel, you know. So I'm just wondering if there are other ways that you could do that. So I remember a stupid thing from my O-levels, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I will always know that I did my maths O-level on a Thursday because my dad said to me, I couldn't remember the formula for circumference. I was trying to learn all the pi symbols, and my dad said to me, just think, tomorrow is Friday, circumference is pi d. So to this day, I've remembered that, but what I mainly remember was that the exam was on a Thursday because of that. So isn't that weird? But what I'm saying is that was a rhyme for me. There's no picture associated to that. It's just...
But that's the
words in my
association.
head. Yeah.
That's what the brain is incredibly associative. The big thing there, and that's the same, if we think of any memory and we think, okay, why is that so strong in my mind? And quite often if it's related to a poem or an acronym or a story or someone else explaining it, and it might not be the visual, we're not all visual people, it's just that the visual part of the brain is very strong, and when we're remembering something, quite often we recall things in images.
Yeah.
But not all the time, and everyone is different in the same way that perception, we experience things very differently. So that's why I say like a kinesthetic, using the body memory and using repeat, review, recall are the ways to get into the long term. But association, it just becomes second nature to me. So, for example, when I was teaching English at one point, I taught about similes and metaphors, and the way I did it was to remember so-map. So-map. Simile, onomatopoeia, metaphor, alliteration, personification. But then, for me personally, it's about the colours of those things. But it could be about the acronym, it could be about the poem, it could be about the story, it could be about but when you've got one aspect of it, of the linking, that's the main thing.
So it's the linking that does it.
That's the most important thing. And everyone, there might be a few people, but it's the most common thing in terms of the aspects of the memory.
I do my shopping lists often by acronym. I don't
Yeah.
write things down. I usually can't find a pen or a piece of paper. So I remember the first letter of
There you go.
everything and I make it into something, and then
Yeah.
when I get there I think, oh, it's spelt this.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember.
That's how to do
That's
it.
what I'm doing, yeah, in the same way.
It's the association. For some people it's the visualization, but visualization is a part of association.
Yeah.
I bet you'd be good on countdown.
There you
I
go.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I teach a lot of people is about a really dreaded subject that's kept out of schools is obviously how the money system works.
Yeah.
And I found that when I was teaching youngsters, my friends youngsters, they pick it up quick. Adults melt down. Well, the guys just glaze, they fall asleep, they can't do it. There's no learning ability, it's gone. 30 years old, that's it, no more than that. But with the kids, they were picking up, they were switching onto it and they were making connections. And one way to make it easier is for everyone act out. We'll all be part of this thing. You can be a banker, you can be another cunt, and you can be whatever. And then we all go in because they were actually doing it. And they remember.
It's the role play.
Yeah, the role play, yeah.
That's what goes in.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's the association.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You didn't show the bankers, did you?
Hey?
Sorry, I'm just joking. The banker. You filmed the banker.
Oh god, that, yeah.
TV.
Exactly. But it is easier, isn't it? You realise when information, because I learn all the time, I'm obsessed with information, I was quantum physics and all that when I was young, and masses of it, just obsessed. And I found it was the visualizations, isn't it? It's the pictures.
Yeah.
And when I used to work in a school, and I would be writing and jog, I would do a scribble as the person's talking, and I would take more in. But no, you just sit like that. And then now I'm not taking nothing in. It's just going in, I'm just thinking about something else. What did you just say? So it's really difficult without being able to use this technique. But definitely, there's a visual link. I find it much easier.
Do you think there's an association between memory and IQ?
That's a tough one.
It is, because I've got a massively high memory on a massively high IQ, but my memory is awful.
Well, in that sense, my IQ is probably lower.
Is there a
inversely proportional?
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is, yeah.
That's an interesting study, isn't it?
The thing is,
Yeah.
IQ is tested. What part of the brain is it testing?
Yeah.
And is it balanced across the brain? And is it balanced across the world we live in, across the people with dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, or people without any what's known as a condition?
Yeah.
So what is considered a high IQ to one isn't to another? That's,
Yeah.
I only heard recently I got about 170 or something. And I thought that surely a lot of people must be getting that, I reckon.
No, Einstein's was 146.
What's that?
Einstein's was 146.
I thought it was 180. I read in one of the tests. It's all come up for us nothing.
we don't know.
Is it? And they're all different, aren't they? So you don't know. You might get 170 on one, 140 on another.
Daniel Tammet can remember pi to how many decimal places?
Thousands.
10,000, isn't it?
What's his name?
Daniel Tammet.
Tammet, is it?
Tammet.
Right.
Yeah, read his book. It's
He's got one book called Born on a Blue Day and another book called Thinking in Numbers.
That's because he sees colours.
Because he sees
colours.
numbers as
You can
colours.
do a killer Sudoku in what? How many minutes?
1 or 3.
One a minute.
Yeah,
It's just like,
I mean, I could do some puzzles really quickly and some puzzles take me a long time. It's the same with maths questions. I was looking at a maths question that you get in the paper that I've kept for quite a long time from my maths resources. So it says you've got the easy ones, the intermediate ones and the difficult ones, and it says do a percentage of this, divide this by this, times this. And some of them I can do really quickly, some of them takes me a long time. Depends on where I am in that time of day. And
but you could do a half an hour Sudoku in about 2 minutes, can't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, do we have any other questions?
Oh, how long
Is
do
there
you see
anything else
his,
we want to hear about? Because I'm bringing it to a close.
how long do you see his last, on average?
It depends. To you, what's a seizure?
Yeah, I don't know. So the whole thing then, from the start of it.
So, the 3 main ones that I've experienced in the last few years are absences, what's known as myoclonic, but like twitches, and tonic-clonic, which they used to be called grand mals.
So are you still conscious?
An absence and a twitch, that's what I call them. Not really. And the grand mal we call a holiday. Go on holiday. But so, for me, the longest one is an absence. That can last up to 4 or 5 hours.
I see, right.
I'm completely out of it, but some people I might look like I'm just a little bit tired. People that don't know me, for people that, if I'm just, for example, teaching, or in a cafe, or in a social place where I'm with people that don't really know the symptoms of it, they might not recognise it, that I'm in a full-blown absence. So I'm conscious, and I might recognise people, but I can't actually, if you ask me the next day what happened, I wouldn't know. And I'm not really fully in control, I don't really know what's going on.
Your third eye's open.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can talk and things.
Talk, yeah. I can
I
talk.
had a similar thing first before I realised what it was.
Yeah.
And lots of, I suppose you'd call them absences,
Yeah.
before I had the biggies. And one of the 2 common places that happened were either in the shower in the morning or at a certain point in my journey driving to work. And I knew, I didn't have any taste or smell or anything, I just had a knowledge, here we go. And I used to say it out loud, oh, here we go. And then I had this woo sort of feeling. And I could see myself, and I had like an out-of-body experience. I could see myself.
Yeah.
I was still driving, I could still change gear and turn, stop at lights and things. Everything was really in slow motion
Spacey.
because my brain was on hyperdrive.
Yeah.
And that would only last for 5 minutes and I'd feel sick for half a day.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine.
Yeah.
It's very, very strange.
Yeah. So.
Well, the twitches. That's
Twitches, again, the twitches could be anything from one twitch, which a second, or the twitches could go on. But now, because, well, the last few years, I've really got to understand it a lot more. But before, I could be twitching all afternoon or all evening, and just have to let it, in the same way that Tourette's, people with Tourette's, that they're not able to control it. Sometimes it just comes on, and sometimes it just go on and go on and go on. So
No, I'm just listening. Sorry.
And the advice from the neurologist currently is that if anybody's fitting for more than 5 minutes, get on the phone, get an ambulance straight away, or accumulation of up to 5 minutes over so many hours. Yeah, I mean, frequency can be really short, can it? Be like 30 seconds, a minute. It's a cumulative amount of time they're spending on content.
Do you have a recovery protocol in place? It's usually.
for me personally, in terms of what I do,
Yeah.
go to bed. or just sit down and rest, drink water, rest. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
A couple of questions.
Yeah.
Do you take any medication?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. How would you reassure an elderly person who's just been diagnosed with epilepsy and kind of thinks, oh my God, my world's falling apart? Any kind of just sort of a reassurance.
Specifically,
it's my mother basically has just been diagnosed with epilepsy, just turned 70, was on holiday and had a tonic-clonic to start with, first thing. And she's really upset about it and really bothered, and she can't drive, and she's just got a new car, and you know, she kind of feels her world has fallen apart over it. From your experience of dealing with it as a condition rather than a disorder, how would you go about sort of reassuring someone?
So the biggest thing is about perception and about being calm. For someone that experiences a tonic-clonic or a full-on seizure, or however we'd like to describe it, quite often what can be the most challenging thing is that I've got no idea what just happened. And for an elderly person, that can be even more challenging. In some senses, because of a lot of things like dementia coming in at that age, and a lot of things to do with memory loss. But it's about staying calm and being okay with it. For me, anyway, that's the biggest reassurance. But it's also about knowing, because there's a big fear. I've met so many people with epilepsy. Again, I don't know if you'd say the same thing about the people that you've experienced with epilepsy, but in terms of the fear of what happened. And that's an inbuilt, conditioned part of our society of, oh my God, what are they thinking of me? Oh my God, and that could be someone coming home from a night out. What happened when I was so drunk? That could be, again, I can't say that, but for some people it might be that, but for people that experience a full-on seizure, it's the actual idea of not knowing what happened and what did all the people around me think of that or do. So when I was 19, I was doing a sales job, and I was sharing a house with a lot of other students doing the same job. And I woke up one morning and my face was absolutely covered in blood. And the girl that I was sharing the room with, she said, Tanya, just go and look in the mirror. And so I just went and looked in the mirror. And okay, what on earth happened there? I just washed my face down, calmed down, had some breakfast, and then, by the way, what was that about? And it's just about being okay with it. So, and for me, with elderly people that I've experienced, it's really the memory loss and the not knowing. That's the biggest thing. But it's about being comfortable. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You?
Can I ask how we can find out more about your teaching methods of accelerated learning?
Tanya, thank you. There's a memory thing. TanyaMoore.co.uk, that's my website. Or Google Tanya Moore. This talk, where I talk about this in quite a lot of detail, is on YouTube. Tanya Moore 5D Accelerated Learning, this is what I call this.
You say more.
M-O-O-R-E.
And Tanya, is it with an I or a Y?
Why? Why, do you say? I don't know why.
I know why now.
When I was younger, I always used to
I'll
say,
remember it now. I will
do you want to remember Tanya? Think of a lasagna. Coming from España.
Tanya lasagna.
Imagine eating the lasagna. No, don't. You're going to remember my name
You
now.
spell Tanya T-A-G-N-E like lasagna, wouldn't you?
No, that's because lasagna is a European word,
I know.
whereas Tanya is a Russian name, or comes from Tatiana. So I've shared a lot on my website, but also on YouTube and various articles that were written about my language workshops. I'm not running the language workshops at the moment. I used to run them quite often in Bristol and in London.
Are you in Bristol? Are you based in Bristol?
Glastonbury.
Oh, great. Okay.
Oh.
I love Glastonbury.
Yeah. So there were articles in the Times, different teaching papers about what happens when they're learning Spanish or Italian or Russian so quickly. So that's where you can find out more. Tanya Moore, UK, or YouTube, or just Google my name. I don't think there's many other Tanya Moores around.
Do you share quite a lot of information around different memory techniques and stuff on your website? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff on
Other sources.
blog posts and the videos
Brilliant.
on the memory techniques. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.